I waited until like I don't know 10 after 11 or something. Then I just closed the meeting, and but then we came on with Phil. For Phil was there for Baba Messiah.
Right. Okay, it's the 11th of April. This is Rabbi Levitt, Horeb.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened. Okay. Yesterday, we had a siyum of our course, and we it was on a webinar through Zoom, and we had Breitowitz come on, and 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 we couldn't. There was all this weird noise that was just so. It was like little kids screaming or something like that. I don't know what it was all about. Anyway, so we just said let's close it. Let's close it, and we'll open it up again, and hopefully it won't. It'll be okay this time. We said a kapitel tehillim, and we turned it off and opened it up again, and Baruch Hashem, it went. So Baruch
Great.
Hashem,
Okay, great.
yeah, yeah. Wow, he was very very good. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so yeah, so I don't know what happened with my yeah. I figured there must be something that I'm doing wrong over here. I don't know. I don't know why the. I don't know. I do not know. Okay, but okay, yeah, but next time, yeah, make sure. Yeah, I was gonna call people, and I said, oh, I'll call somebody and they say, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm doing the other thing. So I didn't.
Well, it's a busy
Anyway,
time.
yeah, that's what I figured. I figured that yeah, that it's a very very yeah. Okay, okay. So here we are today. So Baruch Hashem, and we are up to page 30. How the Horeb came to be written.
Okay, you want me to read?
That's where we are. I think so. Yeah, yeah.
That's where my marker is.
Oh yeah, we were trying to figure out how does Reb Hirsch fit in chronologically with the Malbim and the Chassam Sofer. Also, very. They also had to fight the Reform movement.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so on the 17th of April, 1835, Samson Raphael Hirsch, chief rabbi of Oldenburg and district and successor of Dr. Nathan Marcus Adler, who was later to become the chief rabbi of England, sent a manuscript to his friend and cousin Tzvi Hirsch May. The latter was Registrar General of the Deutsch Israelitische Gemeinde of Hamburg and a man of considerable influence. Hirsch requested May to find a publisher for the manuscript, which bore the title Moriah and Horeb, Essays on Israel's Duties in the Diaspora, written mainly for Israel's thinking young men and women. In a covering letter of some length, which is still extant in the original, Hirsch outlines the plan of his work and tells us of the motives which prompted him to write it. At the same time, he gives a vivid description of the religious conditions among the Jews of the time, as the double title, Moriah and Horeb, shows. The work was originally to consist of two parts. Moriah, the first part, was to deal with the teachings of the Bible on God, man, and the universe, on the history and ultimate destiny of man, and especially with the essence of the nationhood of Israel and consecrated people of God. Horeb, the second part of the work, was to follow logically on the first part and present the laws or duties of Israel, the nation whose task it is to serve as the instrument for the fulfillment of God's plan in history. The presentation of these laws was to lay particular stress on their rationale or underlying ideas. It is significant that Hirsch chose for the title of his work the names of two mountains which represent two highlights in the divine guidance of human history, Moriah and Horeb. Moriah was the scene of Akedas Yitzchak, which consummated Abraham's devotion as a servant of God and was later to become the symbol of Israel's self-sacrificing labors in the service of God and humanity. Horeb, or Sinai, was the scene of the revelation of the will of God, making known the laws and rules of conduct which Israel was to observe, and which in turn would permanently mold its national character and collective personality in such a way as to make it fit for the task allotted it by divine providence. Israel's way was to lead from Horeb, Sinai, to Moriah, Zion, the final resting place of the tablets of stone, which contained the eternal moral law emanating from God, illuminating the path of mankind, which had gone astray until, at the goal of history, man would find his way back to Zion, the law of God, and his final salvation. Thus, Moriah was meant to give Horeb its world historic meaning and final purpose, to lift the law of Sinai out of its isolation and to join Israel's destiny to that of mankind. For Judaism is in reality a world historic institution. The soil of its origin lies in the development of mankind, and its predestined goal is also the goal of Judaism. It is only the truths which Israel was destined to contribute to the thought symposium of mankind, which have made possible the very conception of universal history. These are the outlines of the thoughts which Moriah, the first part of Hirsch's work, was intended to develop, resulting in a system of Jewish philosophy and religion, philosophy of religion, and a Jewish philosophy of history based on the teachings of Bible, Talmud, and Midrash. But events changed Hirsch's original plan. He felt constrained to write Horeb, practical part of his work, first. This change of plan was Hirsch's instinctive reaction to the revolt against Jewish law, which had begun with the French Revolution and the consequent emancipation of European Jewry, and which had reached its climax in the reform movement of Hirsch's days. A revolt which had led in a comparatively short time to an almost complete breakdown of Jewish religious observance and an estrangement from the thought world of the Torah among the overwhelming majority of German Jews. I see a child enveloped in flames. The bystanders are timidly inactive. or seek only to save the building. I see the child, I rush in, I must ask my neighbor first whether he too sees the child. I have the right to consider whether in my haste I may not injure some bystander. May I even ask whether in my hurry to save the child, I'm not hindering the task of saving the building or producing a draft which may impel the fire to fresh activity. Suppose you see the child too late, and before you reach it, the building falls with a hiss and a crash upon its poor dead. Even if it were to bury me too in its ruins, I should only have done my duty. These lines taken from Hirsch's 19 letters shows clearly why Hirsch found it necessary to write the second part of his work, namely the Horeb. First, which was to deal with the practical observances of Judaism and constituted an attempt to lead the young generation of Jewry back to the divine law. Again and again, in the course of the 19 letters, Hirsch feels the need to tell the reader why he was forced to abandon his original plan to deal with the theoretical foundations of Judaism first,
Roy.
and to present instead a compendium of commandments and religious duties. I'm sorry, Mr. Page.
Which page is that?
Compendium of Jewish law and their underlying ideas. In Mendelssohn's days,
Maureen Roy, we just went to page 30 XXX
Oh, I see. Right.
II.
Yeah. 32 in Roman numerals. All right. So I'll listen. I forgot we're not doing it. That seems, I am. Right. I'll listen because I still haven't got the safer. If my son doesn't bring it to, if he hasn't got one, we'll know that tonight when he comes down. I'll have to go and buy one. All right.
I found one online, which I'm buying for Alan.
Oh yes.
It's very expensive though, because there's a shipping charge. It's like 270 shekels.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
half of that is the shipping.
That's a big match. Well, maybe
Wow.
maybe I can get them in a shop.
You can probably get it a
Wow.
lot cheaper if you walk to a store.
Mm.
I don't know what it's offered in.
No, okay. Doesn't matter. We'll see what. Anyway, sorry. So I'll listen for the moment.
In Mendelssohn's days, when the new movement of the Spirit had begun, but practical Jewish religious observance was as yet untouched, then it would have been possible to construct the science of Judaism and to bring to the strong life of practical observance the light and warmth of the Spirit, and our condition would be different now. Today, it is no longer possible. Opinions and thought not derived from authentic Judaism of the Torah have become active and vigorous and labor with hostile energy to undermine that which they pretend to represent. They must be combated directly in the midst of life, so that many who still observe may comprehend what they observe, that many who reject and hesitate and examine that which they reject I recognize as our nearest and most fundamental evil the false opinions and notions which prevail concerning the extent as well as the contents and meaning of our mitzvos. In these uncomprehending tasks, the duties Israel's essence, in these uncomprehending tasks and duties, Israel's essence is misunderstood, attacked, annihilated. At this spot, the greatest flow occurs, and here the first effort should be made to repair the breach.
So he's explaining why he didn't write the first part of this work first, Moriah. And he went straight to write the second part, which is called Horeb, which we're going to see is basically very, very discussion about the practical observance of the mitzvahs. Whereas the first part that he wanted to write was more of an overview, I guess, of Hashem's plan for the world in human history and Israel's part as being the chosen nation, and to recognize to do the service of Hashem and all of the. The Rav Hirsch felt that it was too late for that already. I guess he hadn't written that part yet. He didn't write it yet. He just had written about his plan to write both parts, and then he decided to abandon the writing of the first part because the like he very vividly portrays over here the vision of the child in a burning building, and he has to run in and save the child and hope that the building doesn't collapse on both of them before he saves the child and runs out. So wow, and this was when he in 1835. 1835. Okay. Okay, so now now we're up to when in April 1835. So we go should we take pass the baton over to Mayor? Please.
Okay, if you can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, very well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, when in April 1835, Hirsch sent the manuscript of the Horeb to his friend and cousin in Hamburg, the 19 letters on Judaism had not yet been written. In accordance with Hirsch's request, his friend Z.H. May looked round for a publisher for the Horeb. After having seen the extensive manuscript, the well-known non-Jewish publisher, J.F. Hemmerich, in the neighboring town of Altona, suggested that the author of Horeb should first try to incorporate his ideas in a smaller book or brochure, which would entail less financial risk. Should that small book prove a success, the publisher would then be prepared to proceed with the publication of Horeb. Hirsch accepted this suggestion, and so it came about that he wrote under the pseudonym of Ben Uziel his famous Argon Tzafon, 19 Letters on Judaism. The book bore a subtitle, A Question to the Public Concerning the Publication of the same author's essays on Israel and its duties. On the title page, there also appeared the significant quotation from the Talmud in Megillah. Let's see, Galoi v'yadua lifnei shelo likvodi asiti v'lo likvod beit Abba ela likvodecha asiti shelo yirbu machlochet b'Yisrael. In the manifest before thee, O Lord, that what I have written was not done for the sake of my own honor, nor for the sake of the honor of my father's house, but for thine honor alone, in order that strife and dissension may not spread in Israel. Both this inscription and the fact that the 19 letters was published under a pseudonym are characteristic of Hirsch's intensity and excuse me, singleness of purpose. Okay. The answer of the public in reply to Hirsch's question to it concerning the publication of the Horeb was given in no uncertain terms. The 19 letters made an enormous impression upon the Jews in Germany of all shades of opinion. It became one of the decisive books of that era. And it was no exaggeration when Professor Bernard Drachman of New York, the first translator of the 19 letters into English, wrote in 1899 that this work marked an epoch in the history of Judaism in Germany and indeed in the world. In the preface to the 19 letters, Hirsch says, should the Horeb appear, then these 19 letters will take the place of the introductory outlines to which the 19 letter refers, and which are considered an essential part of the Horeb. The two books, Horeb and the 19 letters, belong, therefore, together. They contain the fundamentals of Samson Raphael Hirsch's philosophy of Judaism and of Jewish law. An introductory essay to Samson Raphael Hirsch's Horeb must therefore also deal, however briefly, with the 19 letters on Judaism, which are fundamental to the understanding of the Horeb. The little book called 19 Letters on Judaism captivated the hearts of its readers, not merely because of the intrinsic value of its content, and because it raised all the burning questions which confronted the younger generation of German Jews, or indeed of West European Jews in general. The fact that the 19 letters evoked so great an echo was also due to their literary form and to the attractive style in which they were written. The book was clothed in the form of an imaginary correspondence between a student and his friend, a young rabbi who was only a few years older than his correspondent. The first letter describes the inner doubts of the young student on whether Judaism is really capable of surviving and of answering the spiritual needs of the post-emancipation epoch. For anyone acquainted with the intellectual and political background of the era of Jewish emancipation and of European Enlightenment, it is clear that the attitude of the young questioner is governed by the philosophy of utilitarianism as expounded by Jeremy Bentham, and by the philosophy of individualism, which is the hallmark of the modern philosophy of life, initiated by the Renaissance and nourished by the ideals of the French Revolution. In the following letters, Hirsch gives the reply of authentic Judaism to the doubts, queries, and complaints of his perplexed young friend. The noble edifice of historic Judaism appears before our eyes. As the theme develops, we learn what Judaism has to say on the great problems of human life, happiness, and destiny. The essence of the Torah is discussed and its unique character stressed, which cannot be described in conventional terms such as religion or theology, but covers the whole of man's existence, his individual life, as well as that of family, society, and state. The
Sorry.
oh,
How does it compare with the Kuzari?
Kuzari, yes. Mystery.
Yeah, true. It was the Kuzari was a much earlier exposition,
Yeah.
but it was the same. It had the same basic plan to because there was people that were there were people in Spain who had become very assimilated into the non-Jewish culture and life, and so and they were, you know, questioning the Torah Judaism. Is this for us or not? So it's my understanding that the Kuzari was written under those circumstances, and so too Rav Hirsch, his main point in writing writing whatever he wrote was to have an impact on what was happening in those very tumultuous times when the younger generation was questioning Judaism and wondering whether the non-Jewish culture had more answers than the Torah had, and so Rav Hirsch, responded to that. You ask what's the difference between them. We have to think about it. First of all, we so far we the only thing that we've learned so far is the Kuzari. We haven't learned the Horeb yet to know exactly what it is that he says. But they were in that sense they had a lot in common. They had a lot in common, and you see that this is not a new thing either. It's not a new thing, because the Kuzari was written already in the time of the Rishonim. It's almost 800, 900 years ago since the Kuzari was written. And here Rav Hirsch wrote, this is only less than 200 years ago.
So I suppose,
yeah.
I suppose that the main thing is that the Kuzari was addressed its people in its time, and the Horeb addressed the generation of its time, and there were two slightly different answers, I suppose, or aspects to their answers. Maybe the same answers, but different setups, different ways of answering due to the different audience.
Yeah, but that was the main thing. It wasn't simply to write a sefer, but it was to address a very pressing need at the time. And we see today, how the it swept the reform movement swept the Jewish people away, and but Rav Hirsch and others, not only Rav Hirsch, others as well, the Malbim and the Chassam Sofer, battled against them to simply to hold on and preserve and be a bastion for the faithful. Although he's that's the point over here. He says over here two things. He says really it was really addressed for I don't know how much this new generation knew about authentic Judaism. I'm not sure. They don't go into that. Whether they knew too much about it at all. How ignorant were they? I don't know. But he also says over here, this is the Rev Diane Grunfeld, that it was also addressed to those who were still observant. But they needed themselves. They needed chizik and inspiration and encouragement and also to be able to hold on to what it is that they were holding on to. So it was sort of like a double purpose to try to save the child that was in the burning building that couldn't really help himself because he didn't really know. It sounds like that's he says, they were influenced mainly by non-Jewish ideas. And those that were observant, but they were being challenged, and they needed strength and support and encouragement and inspiration to continue in their way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Where are we?
Towards the bottom, the fourth line up of 33, Roman numeral. We're almost done with this paragraph. Conception of the Torah as the unique message of God addressed to man in his totality leads to a proper understanding of the law, both written and oral, and of Talmudical thinking and the role of Israel's sages in interpreting and safeguarding the law. The mitzvot, commandments and religious duties, are explained not as mere ceremonies to be discarded at will, but as divine rules of life for the people of God, eternal and inviolable. Wow.
Yeah, and another thing I want to point out that I just thought of, which is interesting, both of these Svarim, the Kuzari, right? Even though it may have been written for a specific a group of people in a specific time for specific circumstances, but it's a classic exposition of Torah thinking, and today we learn it, and it was written by one of the greatest Jewish thinkers of all time. So it wasn't just written by some like a Kirov rabbi for a Shabbaton. It's the same exact thing could be said for Rav Hirsch as well. Rav Hirsch was a great scholar in Torah, and his works are studied today. They were not just they're classic expositions of Torah of the Torah view. In other words, even though they were written for a specific purpose and not just simply to be a safer to expound upon what is Torah. Okay, 11:32. So we say farewell to our resident Cohen, the owner, Reb Meir.
Okay.
Full today.
That's right. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Bye for now. Thank you.
Amen.
Okay.
Everybody else? No.
Amavorch is Borach. Okay, we'll be back soon with Bava Metzia.